Hi everyone and welcome to another video. I'm Lauren and today I'm going to talk about some of the books that I've read in the month of January 2022. I know we're kind of halfway through February, but life has been busy with the move, and also I've kind of been thinking about doing my wrap-ups a little bit differently, so we're going to play with that in the next couple of videos and we'll have to see how it goes. And how I want to start doing it is by grouping books a little bit more thematically instead of just talking about all of the books at the end of the month. So I'm going to do shorter videos, but maybe just talking about 2 or 3 books at a time and not necessarily repeat everything during my wrap-ups. So today, let's start first of all with some of the stats, but I can tell you already that I won't be talking about many books really at this time. In the month of January, I've got my info here, I've read 7 books and I DNF'd one. The one that I DNF'd was because basically I was not interested in the subject matter at all, but at least I tried. Not gonna waste your time with it. Like I said, 7 books. One was for Invisible Cities, so you'll be able to see that in my Invisible Cities video about Algeria. So that was Caton des Singes by Yasmina Kadra. Then we've got 2 classics. I have read, one is a modern classic, that's The Color Purple by Alice Walker, that I absolutely loved. And I also finally read Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen, which I also liked. I really like discovering the book. But those 2 you will hear about more about my thoughts in a separate book where I talk about some of the classics. At least that's how I think right now. I'm going to group them. And I also read 2 historical fiction. One was about the Bangladesh War of Independence, and that is Golden Age by Tahmina Aman, and the other is A Pull of the Stars by Emma Donoghue. Again, books that I'm not going to talk about in this video. Let me see, what do we have left? I think that's all. That means that there are 2 books that I am going to talk about now, and because we have the time, I'm going to talk about them a little bit longer. So the first book that I want to talk about is Celestine by Tatiana de Rosnay. She's also the person that wrote Sunny Boy, which I believe was more popular, although I haven't really read that one. Tatiana de Rosnay is a French author, and I read this with my book club that I kind of created with people that I know from the cycling world, which has been a lot of fun because we all read very different things. And this was actually the second book that we read together. So Celestine Dubac is about a young man who lives in Paris, and he's an absolute book nerd. He has just one friend, he doesn't get along with his father very well, and he's lost his mother when he was very young. And at one point when he walks around, he bumps into an older lady who is homeless. And at the beginning they don't really get along, but something happens and they do start to come into contact and to get to know one another very slowly, and that ends up changing their lives on both sides, because he starts to see, oh wait, there's a different world than my very rich and very comfortable one, and she sees what it's like again to be loved. Up until that, all was good. It was kind of going in a very comfortable direction, but then the book goes into very weird places. It goes poof, random magic realism, then it goes kind of detective-y, then it goes a little bit romance, and it didn't really feel believable to me. I wasn't, the execution just didn't really work. And I've been thinking about why it is that with one author they will go in a direction that you weren't expecting, but you're like, oh my god, yes. And with others you're like, no, this doesn't work. And I still don't really know what it is, but it meant for me that this work was a bit of a disappointment. But at the end, like when the book is over, you get a little bit of an explanation as to why. At least it was explained to me, because Tatiana de Rosnay talks about how this is one of the first novels that she wrote, and that at the time she couldn't find a publisher for it. But later, years later, when she was a more celebrated author, the publisher, when she found this in a box, and the publisher was like, oh yes, let's publish this. So and that's an interesting thought, because to me it read like a debut novel. It read like an author that has all of these ideas and wants to do something different, which I totally understand, and obviously couldn't dream of doing it any better than that. But that it misses a little bit of polishing, or maybe taking out a couple of ideas so that the whole is better. And this really read like that, someone that wants just a little bit too much. So yeah, I was disappointed by this one because yeah, the execution just did not work for me. Now the other book I also have different thoughts about, and that is Damnation Spring by Ash Davidson. Super interesting premise. This is set in a timber village in the 1970s in the US, and our main characters are a couple. We've got Rich and Colleen. He is, I think, the third generation already of climber, and she's a midwife, and they have a son who I think is 4 years old. And they live in a village that is rather secluded, and basically everyone has to do with the timber village. Nearly every man works for the logging company, basically. Now there's a lot of interesting topics in the book, and they're woven together very well. I thought they were very well nuanced, and everything just develops very naturally, and you see more layers appearing, which I really liked. So we've got, for example, the actual techniques of logging, which I thought was very interesting. I also read some reviews that people are like, it really read to them like as if the author had just read a manual and was just putting information in, but I thought it was interesting. We've got living in a very small community like that, where everybody is very interlinked and you know everything about your neighbors. We've got the environmental impact of logging. We've got what that means for people whose livelihood depend on it. We've got the topic of miscarriages, and so there's obviously a trigger warning for that. We've got a couple with secrets. We've got the position of, being a landowner, what that means through the ages. We've also got the topic of indigenous people still living there. We've got what it means to have a dream come to you from the generations before you, and what do you do with the people that come after you. There's a lot of stuff, and like I said, woven very well together, but it was so damn slow. It was so slow. You would, as a reader, you would kind of see stuff, realize links, but then it would take another 5 chapters before the characters starting acting on that. The nuance was taken a little bit too far in that sense. I mean, it took chapters and chapters. I think halfway through the book, you still haven't gone to, the problem part. There hasn't been the initial clash that you often see in books or in movies, and then things start happening. Nothing was happening. It's very character based, and it's a little bit too much. I think that if I had been in a different mindset, I would absolutely DNF'd it, but apparently while I was listening to this, I was in a mindset that I could just attach my thoughts to the book and just roll with it, even though I was frustrated that things were going so slow. Another thing that I have, like, both positive and negative thoughts on is that I really like that the book was it looked at timber and environment from the point of view of people whose livelihood depended on it. And you could see how they thought about environmentalists. I mean, they were long-haired, hippie tree huggers, and there was a lot of aggression. And I thought it was good to see it more from the point of view of, they were desperate in a sense, because if they couldn't cut wood, if they couldn't do stuff, the whole village would basically disappear. So I really liked that. However, it was completely undermined with all of the people on the what happens with wood, we need to cut wood side of the conversation, except for one of our main characters. All of them are very unlikable. They do despicable things, and that made it harder to understand their point of view. So this whole, on the one hand, because in the book, did I say that? I'm not entirely sure, but the whole kind of book evolves around the topic of, the environment and whether logging is good, and our 2 main characters, Rich and Colleen, end up on different sides of the conversation. Sort of, they don't talk a lot, but they're the only ones that are likable, them and the people that suffer from the environmental consequences, so that it made for a very skewed discussion in a sense. You're not gonna, if you see the people, you have these 2 point of views, and you can understand both, but if the people that nowadays, with environment being more important, we're gonna view the logging companies differently, but then if all of them are despicable, it's going to be hard to understand them. So I kind of missed that. So another book that's kind of a mixed match, and I don't think it's not one that I could either recommend or not recommend. You're really gonna have to make up your own mind about it. I think that if you like, obviously, like character-based and slowly developing things, yes, and like all the other topics, you're gonna like this. If you like plot-heavy books, I would stay clear of this one. I did, however, really like how it was written. It was very calm, and I think that there were a lot of beautiful passages, and that really helped me like go through with it, even though at some point like, yes, I know this is what you said before, but slightly different and slightly more developed, but still pretty much the same. So mixed bag. Kind of positive right now. Anyway, those were the 2 books that I'm going to talk about in this video. Tell me if you appreciate that I only talk about 2 books and that you would rather I just talk about the 10 of them instead of, you know, oh, I read this, not gonna talk about, read this, not gonna talk about it. Have you read any of the 2 books that I've read, or are there any of the ones that I have foreshadowed that you're very interested in? Because then I might prioritize that one. I'll see you guys in the next video. I have no idea when that will be because the move is imminent. Bye bye!
Ba-chum, ba-chum, chum.